One of the reviews on Letterboxd for...
Letterboxd?
The dating website for movies.
Letterboxd. God.
One of the reviews, though, is this film wants to make... Okay, let me back up here. This film makes me want to die, but in a good way. And I think that that's very well said.
Oh my god.
Ladies and gentlemen, prepare for a cinematic odyssey through the 100 greatest films spanning from the roaring 1920s to the cutting-edge masterpieces of 2024. Carefully curated from the lovely people on Letterboxd. Two intrepid souls embark on a journey through a treasure trove of timeless classics and groundbreaking contemporary works, where each frame embodies the enduring magic of the silver screen. Grab your popcorn and join us on this epic expedition through a century of cinematic excellence, where every film promises to enchant, inspire, and leave an indelible mark on the soul. And now, for your listening pleasure, here are the LetterBros.
Welcome back, everybody, to LetterBros, where we let a wheel decide what movie we'll watch next based off the top 100 movies on Letterboxd. As always, I am Parker.
And I'm Felix.
How we doing today, buddy? We're live.
We are live, and we are picking some fruit.
We're getting wild with some strawberries today. If you did not hear from last episode, we picked our third Ingmar Bergman film in a pretty successive rate. I didn't think we were gonna get 11 films in and already have 3 Bergman films.
Well, it's been 28% of our movies that we've watched have been Ingmar Bergman.
Correct.
3 out of 11.
But again, it's just we've been heavy hitting with Bergman. I think we still have a couple more. We've already watched
probably.
We've watched Fanny and Alexander. We watched Scenes from a Marriage, and now we've watched Wild Strawberries, which was filmed in, when was it filmed?
It released in 1957.
Okay, cool.
So yes, and it was, as you said, directed by Ingmar Bergman. And it was much shorter than the other Ingmar Bergman experiences that we've had, which have been quite long and quite reduced in a sense, because from my understanding, this was not a miniseries, which would be the first Ingmar Bergman film that we've watched and that we've actually watched in its entirety, technically.
Yeah, and in the format that it was intended to be watched in. Because, Fanny and Alexander and Scenes from a Marriage have been miniseries that were filmed in that manner, but then theatrically were cut to fit a theatrical release and to be shown in theaters. And while I feel like Scenes benefited a little bit more from that type of cut, I feel like, as much as Parker loves Fanny and Alexander,
okay, it's not my favorite movie in the whole world,
and you know what, I've grown to love it more. Even just doing cuts for reels and all that, even watching back scenes from Fanny and Alexander, I might watch the 5-hour cut soon.
Let me know if you do, and I also might.
That might just be its own episode in general.
Yeah.
Just a cut comparison. But again, Wild Strawberries was not a mini-series. It's actually one of the shorter films that we've seen. It's only about 90 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm. Almost right on the nose.
Yeah, so it's our second shortest film.
The other, which was 44 minutes.
Correct. So it's you're not gonna beat that. I'll let Parker dive into the synopsis of the film, and we'll get into our thoughts, our qualms, and what we thought was good about the movie.
Yeah, so it's a pretty straightforward plot, which I feel as though each of our Ingmar Bergman experiences have gotten a little bit more simplified as we've gone on. We go from the sprawling characters of Fanny and Alexander, in which there's so many storylines that we're following, and then Scenes from a Marriage, which is long, enduring, and you have just the 2 characters. Mm-hmm. And now Wild Strawberries, which is more condensed in runtime, a little bit more narratively focused, and there's not as much going on, but it's still a very riveting story. We are following Dr. Isaac Borg on a road trip to receive his honorary degree at the Lund Cathedral. So he's been a doctor for 50 years, and throughout his life has been known to some as a benevolent and very caring individual, and to others as cold and calculated and not the kindest, even though he may put on the facade as such. Mm-hmm. So along the way, he is accompanied by Marianne, who's his daughter-in-law, as well as a group of young hitchhikers at one point a bickering couple with horrible driving skills and horrible marital skills as well. So that was an interesting little hiccup in the plot line that we'll talk about. But along the way, he's really reflecting on the choices that he's made throughout his life, the relationships that he's had with the people around him, and kind of thinking what could he have done differently and what is he proud of, and overall reflecting on his life through dreams and through visions, hallucinations, it seemed at times. So while it is now outside of the top 100 on Letterboxd, it's currently sitting at number 104. It was at 97, I believe, at the time that we created this list.
Yes.
And it did receive critical acclaim at both the Academy Awards and the Golden Globes, the latter of which you mentioned it did win Best Foreign Language Film. Is that correct? So, it's a pretty tight narrative. I have a wild theory about it, if you want to get into that real quick or if you want to save it for later, but...
Let's save it for later and just go into just what our general thoughts were on the film. Like, we've seen, like what you said, pretty different Bergman films. Like, two have had really long run times, but have had completely different stories in terms of what we've seen. Like, we have seen a pretty broad scope of Bergman's vision, but I feel like there's always the underlying, and it's funny because I was cutting up a reel about Bergman. I believe it was Martin Scorsese. Who talks about like the movies. Well, it was really funny that he mentioned that he might leave you a little bit behind, which I definitely felt like in some parts of this film that I had to go and rewatch a couple scenes from the film, but that he's mainly having like conversations like with himself, and you see
the same thing.
Yeah, that a lot of his films like are based off of like it's almost like a little snapshot of what's going on in Bergman's life. I mean, even writing the script for this, like he was in the hospital while writing the script for this film.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that he had Victor.
Yeah,
Victor
Sjostrom. Something along those lines.
Yeah, so Victor Sjostrom was in mind in Bergman while writing this film. And, Sjostrom, who was, at the tailor end of his career after doing silent films, he was very reluctant to take the role just because of his age. But, I mean, if you have a vision and you're able to convince that person, it makes that much of a difference, and it shows on screen. Like, Sjostrom was born to play this role, and he plays it
so good.
It's amazing. So it's nice to see that we get that sort of connection throughout all of the Bergman films. I don't think there was a repeating cast member from other Bergman films.
No, and I was looking for them because what there are repeating names. Marianne we see again, Isaac we see again. So I'd be interested to know more about what Bergman's inspirations are for his character names and what similarities he sees in the characters of the same name across the scope of his cinematic universe now.
The BCU.
But, yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. He was born to play the role of Isaac Borg, and he reminded me a lot. Have you seen Succession? He reminded me a lot of Brian Cox.
I need to get onto Succession. My dad loves it, and I have Max, so I can watch it now.
Yeah.
So.
Tangent, but highly recommended. But you know who Brian Cox is, though, the guy.
Yeah,
and
I'm aware of his character.
Yes, so it seemed similar to that. However, Dr. Borg is far more self-reflective than Brian Cox's character in Succession ever is. He's just straight up an asshole.
Yeah.
But there were those similarities in the portrayals, and I thought he did an excellent job, and I thought the rest of the cast did a very good job as well, especially the actress that played Marianne, Ingrid Thulin. I thought she was also a highlight of this film.
She was definitely a highlight for me because when she came on screen, I was like, she's the most beautiful woman I've seen on screen.
The whole cast is something
really
in the Swedish water, dude.
It is, but yeah, I was like, this is my new celebrity crush.
Even 96-year-old Borg's mom, smoke show.
Oh yeah. Like the Borg show?
No.
But no, like to your point, the cast, like even there's one person that has several people that have dual roles in this movie. BB Anderson, who plays like the girl hitchhiker that they pick up, also plays Sarah, who has a pivotal part in this film as someone who was, going to get married to Isaac at some point until his God, this brother's such a dick.
I know.
Swoops in and basically steals his girl from him. But I mean, there's like undertones of like, that she maybe was just like trying to marry him just for the sake of getting married, but that she really had feelings for her brother all along. Because I mean, you even
His brother.
Yeah,
not
his
her brother.
Not her
no,
brother.
they are cousins.
They are cousins. I literally typed it in. I'm like, Sweden's crazy, bro. Like the infidelity in Fanning Alexander, like it's just, and scenes from A Marriage too. Like Sweden's wild, dude. I don't know what's going on over there. They got good furniture and meatballs though.
Yes, they do. But a lot of the story was told throughout the perspective of Dr. Borg's flashbacks and dream sequences. And
Bergman loves his dream sequences, dude.
Yeah, he does. I would say that they were... It still blurs the line between reality and I don't know what the opposite of reality would be. It's
just fantastical.
Exactly. And
I felt that like we got a little bit of that, like exactly what you just said. Like I felt the more like fantastical undertones like throughout the dream sequences. Specifically one that like we'll get into in a little bit. But I want to hear your theory that you just brought up earlier.
Yeah, so it has to do with these sequences, and specifically the one in which we can dive into now. I think it's he's asleep in the car. It's towards the third act, almost towards the third act of the movie. I would say it probably jumps off the third act. And he is under review, essentially. And he's dreaming as though he's in some sort of purgatory and being reviewed for his medical skills, but also his life choices in medical terms.
This is the one that I was thinking about, too.
Well, because the way it was shot and the way that it was acted was, I mean, so suspenseful. We got a little slice of a horror movie, honestly, for a second there. And not the jump scare kind of horror, but it made you feel uneasy. And it made you feel similar. You recently watched The Babadook. And there's a sense of dread throughout certain films that can be much scarier than any jump scare that jumps out at you.
Exactly.
And that's what I felt during this sequence. And you and I are both young, spry chickens. And so we're not in our 70s and 80s. I'm sure watching this after having lived so much more life would be even more profound. But you still got those feelings of reflection and tenseness and not knowing whether or not you made the right decisions or knowing that you made the wrong decisions and feeling guilty for it. However, what if it was all a reflection and he's actually just in the hospital, as Bergman was throughout the course of writing this film, on the brink of death, and this whole thing is his life flashing before his eyes in some absurd sequence that we get to tag along with. And I thought that there was going to be... I at times thought that there was going to be some sort of reveal of that sort. I feel as though Bergman is not that kind of filmmaker that would do that.
He's not an M. Night Shyamalan.
Exactly. However, if it were shot today in America for the ticket sales and the buzz and the word of mouth, I'm sure that would have been interjected there at some point.
Yeah.
But
like having it be at the end, like when he's like lying down in bed after he gets his award, like having like a fade into that. And,
because the movie ends
having
with
like his Wizard of Oz ending.
Right. Because the movie does end with a fade of him going to sleep and, again, reminiscing and reflecting. And, say the last extra couple frames zoomed out, and all of a sudden he was in the fucking hospital or something along those lines.
Which I'm glad it wasn't that.
Me too. Though, I feel it would have felt deserved if that's the direction that it did go.
Yeah.
Because that's what we were witnessing. And some of it did blend. There are times where he's literally watching scenes from his past unfold in front of him, and he's not dreaming. Daydreaming, I guess you could say.
Yeah, like when he goes back to his summer home.
Right.
And it just, like, that part freaked me out. That's where I'm like... I was kind of like, when are we in the dream and when are we in reality?
Right.
Where he's literally looking at the house, and then all of a sudden, like... Sarah just comes out of the house. I'm like, oh, well, I guess this is who they were visiting, but she's like in period piece clothing.
Right.
And then when we see that actress again playing the hitchhiker, she's like in a flannel and like just, modern clothes. So like it was a little jarring. Like it was after we had just got the first dream sequence, which was pretty clear that it was a dream sequence.
Right.
And he's, kind of faltering like with his own mortality, like seeing the coffin drop and a hand come out, and now he's choking himself out. Like, that part was and the dude with like the smushed up face, shit was so scary.
There were some definite moments like that where
Or that, and I mean, this is probably just like a film bro take, but that, you know, a lot of the clocks, or I want to say all of the clocks that we saw in the film had no hands on them.
Oh, I noticed that in
like,
one instance, but...
So it's when in the first dream sequence, but then later on in the movie, they give him a watch. I think it was when he receives his degree.
Oh, yeah.
That they give him a watch with no hands on it. And I mean, that's just, in my take, it's just him wrestling with his mortality and saying that, like, you know, he has no time left. He's film theory. But, I mean, he's wrestling with that throughout the movie and just, you know, kind of going, and I think he's struggling with some sort of mental issue, like probably like Alzheimer's and maybe even dementia, if he's, you know, seeing all of these things unfold from his life without maybe going to sleep. But I mean, you see that like even in the third act dream sequence where they ask him like to, you know, identify a microorganism on the microscope, and he can't tell them what it is. He can't
or understand the words,
or even see it. He's like, the microscope is broken,
right?
Or even like reading the words on the wall, which I'm like, I do not speak Swedish. I don't know if that was in Swedish or if it was in something else, but you know, you kind of see him like deteriorating, which like even Marianne is like going over things that he said, which are pretty fucking awful. What he says that, like, you know,
when she's moving in to stay, and we'll get into that in just a moment. She's moving in to stay with him. Which I thought was an odd narrative.
But
decision.
They also kind of go into like her marriage to his son is not doing so hot either. Like,
right.
I think like she's on the brink of trying to separate from her husband, which is Isaac's son, but you know, she's going and telling him all of these horrible things that he said in his life, and he's kind of being like, did I say that? Really? Like, he's never outright like a terrible person in this movie.
Right. And I think that the film follows that line very, very well, because it never lets you make an objective decision as to whether or not his choices throughout life were right or wrong. And there are some instances, yes, where you can sit back and say, well, yeah, that's a very cold thing to say. And maybe you didn't make the right decision in that moment in your life. But the way in which he reflects upon it, and the way that other characters in the film recognize him for his commendable works, such as when he's getting gas at the station, and that couple is there to thank him, and they say the gas is on us. And it shows you that he has made some form of charitable contributions in his past, whether it be through acts of service, kindness, donation. So he's not all around a bad person, which is what I liked about the film.
Which I just like praise Bergman for not ever really giving us like an exposition dump in his films. Like he's very much like an environmental storyteller that like you get these beats and he gives you just enough to know like the world that he's creating in his film, which I really love it. When we don't get like literally somebody like, it's like when you get fucking selected to like read something in the classroom, like you're reading fucking Tom Sawyer, and it's like, Parker, you get a paragraph and I get a paragraph. I cannot understand what's going on in the story when somebody is just fucking explaining it to me. But like, say, you know, you go to like Disney World and you go to like that Tom Sawyer Island and you just get the beats just from being in the environment and just kind of seeing these things and maybe picking up on that. It just feels so much more real and so much more like you are able to absorb a lot more of the story and actually care for it. Like, to your point, like when you're saying that like you don't really make any objective claims, like I never really hated Isaac throughout the movie, even though the movie's trying to paint him in this light of like that he wasn't always the best guy, at least at home. But when we go through that, you know, third act dream sequence, like I felt so bad for him. Like, you know, just seeing those, like I could
explain to me here what. So there's a scene in which he's watching his wife in the woods.
I had to look this up.
Okay, I was quite confused. I wasn't 100% sure what was happening. I'm not sure if it was the subtitles that weren't giving me enough information or what. But
I feel like it's just Bergman trying to just not leave it up to interpretation, because I'm like, this feels like it's a pivotal scene in this movie, because, you know, the thumbnail for Wild Strawberries is him looking through the ladder when he's looking at the scene that's playing out. So I'm like, okay, this is it.
Right.
This is a pivotal scene. And then the scene plays out, and I'm like, okay, but what the fuck is going on? So I had to look it up on YouTube. The description doesn't say anything, and there's just literally one comment that says, okay, what the fuck is going on? Please somebody tell me. And someone literally explained that, like, this is his wife cheating on him.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And that, you know...
And he's going to forgive her no matter what.
Correct.
Because of it. Okay. That's what I thought. I just was not 100% sure.
Because she even says, he's going to say that, like, I forgive you, my child. Like, he's a god. That he has this kind of god mentality when it comes to, I guess, his family. Because, you know, he doesn't want to deal with the mental issues that are going on with his son and his daughter-in-law's marriage. Like, he kind of shoos them away based off the context that Marianne gives us. But it also is interesting because when he has these dream sequences, especially, like, with flashbacks, I feel like we are looking at it through his perspective when he was in that moment in time.
Yes. Yeah.
So I feel
we
like
get both. We get when he was in that moment in time, and now that he's lived years, also how he interprets that moment.
So that leaves me to believe that, like, maybe he witnessed this infidelity.
He did. No, he did.
Exactly.
Because the doctor who's testing him said, you stood there and you watched this unfold.
Yeah, he literally gives the date and year of when it happened, which... That's what I had thought, but I wanted to make absolutely sure, because we also never see this woman again. Like,
no, well,
we know
it's his wife.
Yeah, but we haven't really been, like, introduced to her. Like, we've been introduced to his daughter-in-law. We were briefly introduced to his son enough to kind of get, like, a beat of, like, what kind of person he is. But, like, we just know that, like, his wife is dead. But when we get this, like, I wasn't aware that there was, like, an infidelity line. So when it was just thrown at us in this, like, I want to say, like, less than 10-minute scene, I was like, what the fuck is going on? But again, that's just props to Bergman. He'll kind of leave you behind a little bit, but it's just...
Well, how nuanced of him to allow the individual who's having these struggles with their own personal choices he's being painted as a bad guy because of the way that he will react to his own wife cheating on him.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that he's not the one committing the act of infidelity here, because it allows us to still have that which way kind of nature when judging Dr. Borg, essentially.
Yeah.
There's so much to unpack here, because there's also the two male hitchhikers who are opposite sides of the same coin in terms of science and religion.
Yeah, they're arguing about it throughout the movie a lot.
But Dr. Borg, he has that same struggle because, from my understanding, he is a religious scientist. So he has those conversations within himself. And this is also where my theory was kind of painted, because how perfect of these two to be a personification of the internal struggle that Dr. Borg has been having all his life between theology and science.
And that they're both in love. Like, because that's definitely like a polyamorous relationship going on with the hitchhikers. Well, I feel like that they're also in love with this woman who literally is played by the same woman that he was in love with many years ago. And, like, he still loves her. Even when he got married, he still loves this. Like, this was his one true love. Right. So it's a fair point.
And I just wanted to say as well, I think it's the sign of a good movie when you're allowed to interject your own personal experiences into the plot and kind of take away your own story from what you're watching.
Your own biases.
So hearkening back to what you said about a distaste for exposition dumps, when all of that is given to you, it allows you less space to interject your own thoughts and your own beliefs and your own takeaways. So I think Bergman does that very, very well. He gives you just enough to allow you to paint by the numbers and take away from it what it is that you think you should take away from it.
Exactly.
So there's so much to unpack in 90 minutes, and it's so concise, this movie is. We'll get to it with pacing. I feel it moved along pretty well.
Oh, yeah. That's it. We'll get into that, but I have a very, very interesting score for pacing in terms of that. But just one thing I want to note, just like some bullshittery, like this is a non-film pro take, but when they get into that car accident, I literally busted out laughing at how this car just kind of flipped over, and it's just like, it's like a fucking cartoon car that they literally just
push it over.
They literally push it over, and I was expecting it just be like, oh, they pushed it over, and this car that literally just flipped the fuck over is just gonna keep on driving and it's gonna be fine. But I'm glad we didn't, because we got some of the best performances in this movie from these two,
from the couple.
From this couple. It was fucking uncomfortable to watch.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, this fucking vile dude is just, you know, like, there's literally a line that he says. He's like, we have no excuse that this accident happened. My wife was driving, so that's why it happened. But then that's just the tip of the iceberg, that he continues to just shit on his wife for absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And she's just there sitting it, taking it. Like, you see her in the back. Like, it never really does, like, a rack focus on her. But, like, you see tears streaming down her face. So, like, then it gets to a point where she literally just starts hitting him, and they kick him out because they don't want this toxic behavior in the car. But, I mean, you can kind of interpret that as, like, to your point of, like, how, you know, the hitchhikers are kind of like the two sides of the same coin in terms of Isaac.
They all serve the purpose of his own self-reflection. Yeah.
Exactly. So we could kind of see this as maybe a window into, and I'm not saying that, like, that's exactly what his marriage with his wife was like, but, like, kind of
Agree. I agree.
Yeah, it's an over-exaggeration of what his marital life might have been while his wife was still alive, but...
Yes, and I was trying to make that connection too, but we also learned that he's somebody who avoids confrontation in most instances, especially when we know that he won't even confront his wife about cheating on him. Mm-hmm. So he just knows, and it's just not something that's important to him. At the end of the day, and that's what I discerned from it, is that at the end of the day, he frankly does not care that his wife is cheating on him, and to her, that's what hurts. Mm-hmm. Is that he doesn't even care about me committing the most egregious act of a relationship, right? So I was trying to take away what he saw in his prior relationships between that two couple, but I had a hard time applicating it. But it was still entertaining nonetheless, and you're right, they were very good performances by both of them.
And a take that I saw online, and I kind of made that, like, or not even sort of connection, because I mean that third act dream sequence is, I really felt. Because, I mean, you're watching Isaac go out throughout the whole movie, and I'm, like, trying to connect with this character and whatnot, but, I mean, I really connected with Isaac during that third act dream sequence. Like, you just felt so bad for this man. I mean, like...
Which one? Are you talking about when he sees himself fishing at the very end?
No. I'm talking about, like, the one that we've been talking about the whole time. That I did feel much more for Isaac in that moment, because, like, you see this man deteriorating, and you see him just, like, reliving the worst moment of his life while also, you know, self-doubting his abilities. Which, funny enough, the guy conducting the audit is also the same actor playing the terrible fucking husband from the car wreck.
I did not notice that.
Yeah, it was very interesting to see. But it's just... You felt so bad for him, and it fades back, and he's in the car, and there's nobody in there. So I'm thinking, oh my god.
Well, that's where I thought we're about to get La Raville Magnifico, where we have nothing around him, and he's been on his own this whole time, and he's just been imagining freaking everything.
Yeah,
so that's where that is. You see what I mean?
No, and I do, but I was just more so, like, I was just mortified and sad that, like, oh my god, these people have been hating on him, and he's now all alone. Like, they've literally just left this poor little old man. I don't know. I fucking love Isaac. He has big sweet grandpa energy throughout the movie. Mm-hmm. But then it pans over, and you see Marianne in the car, and it was just like, I felt this, like, sigh of relief that, like, okay, somebody is there. And I mean...
And then they're actually picking flowers for him to do him an honor.
Exactly.
And before we move into our rankings, because we probably could hear and get into our dislikes in terms of the rating system, but I did also like that all along the way he's getting praised for his scientific accomplishment, but he's reflecting at what cost did I achieve this, because yes, he obtained something spectacular. He was a doctor for 50 years. He's getting an honorary degree from the Church of London,
which did you feel was, you know, like, satisfying when he got that degree? Because I didn't feel like...
No,
this is the whole point of the movie, is him driving to go and get this degree, and it's like, I didn't feel anything, and I feel like that's a big reflection of him as well. Exactly. That, like, you know, the real moments of happiness that he has is when he sees the hitchhikers for the last time, and they are picking up another ride, and they're, like, literally singing to him out the window, and that... he gets that moment of clarity and that moment of acceptance from Marianne where he's like, I like you. I like you too. And that, I felt like to me and probably to Isaac that was the more satisfying accomplishment that he got in this movie. And it was very wholesome. Like, it'll reflect in my rankings, but I'd say we maybe just dive into it unless you want any other takes before.
No, I think we should.
All right, so for enjoyability and rewatchability, I had to go back to the last two Bergman films that we watched, just because, in my personal opinion, this was my favorite Bergman film that we have seen. Yeah. Well, one, because it wasn't almost fucking 4 hours long. Mm-hmm. And again, this doesn't feel like that we're missing anything, which I feel like we've gotten in Fanny and Alexander, and not really Scenes from a Marriage as much, but you could definitely tell that like there's more that Bergman wanted to put on screen without making it a 4-hour runtime in a movie theater. Mm-hmm. So I went and gave this a 13 out of 15 for enjoyability and rewatchability. I was thoroughly hooked in this film from beginning to end. I will preface it with saying that I did watch it late last night, but I was thoroughly hooked from beginning to end. There were some scenes again that I had to rewind just for clarity, but I was never bored with this movie. I was thoroughly enjoying it throughout, and it's definitely like, if I'm in the mood for a Bergman film, this is the one that I'm watching. Mm-hmm. But what did you think?
So I had it a little bit lower at first. I was thinking 8 or 9, but I ended up at a 10 because there is so much that's packed into its short runtime. It is definitely more digestible than the prior two Bergman films. And it was an relatively easy watch that you could put on, and however, it still deals with heavier themes that are not necessarily something I put on for fun. Mm-hmm. You follow, but I enjoyed my initial watch. I was curious where it was going to be going, and I would probably give it a rewatch. You see, now I'm struggling and bringing myself back down because I'm more inclined to rewatch Fanny and Alexander.
Yeah.
Mark me down for a 9. I've talked to myself.
A 9?
Yeah, so I'm going to put it at a 9, and it's still a good rating.
More like Fanboy and Alexander.
Okay, now. I originally had it at an 8, moved it to a 9, or moved it to a 10, so settle it there at a 9.
I had Fanny and Alexander at a 9, and I
think I did as well.
I don't remember what I had for Scenes from a Marriage, but I know it was like, this is the highest one that I have for Bergman.
Yeah, 13, definitely.
Mm-hmm. What did you think of the story?
So I thought the story was very well told, and again, there was just so much that was there, without it being too overbearing, and it's, we see a lot of these types of movies, I feel. Nowadays, there are some...
Just like reflections.
Right, reflections. So it's nothing crazy. I went with an 11. Okay. Because I really like the story that's being told. It's being told well. There were some curious moments and maybe some struggles that I had personally with the script in which it could have taken a little bit more time. But again, that'll probably go deeper into suspension of disbelief. Yeah. But it was a good story that was told well. So 11, yeah.
All right.
I feel like you had this also at a 13, I'm going to guess.
No, I had it at a 12.
Okay.
Just because, like you said, the story is really tight. I had just a little bit more connection with the story as it was going on, so that's maybe why I bumped it just a little bit higher. I mean, and I don't know if this has happened with you as well. Like, I've had a grandparent with Alzheimer's, and while the movie doesn't strictly say that he has this, there's a lot of signs of it throughout the movie, and it just continues to get stronger. And I specifically that dream sequence, the scary one that we'll say. I definitely it was almost like a reflection of seeing somebody dealing with a loss in memory and a loss of just you don't have confidence in something that you've been doing for 50 years, let alone someone with Alzheimer's, and from when I was at a younger age, just seeing that they can't even remember your name. So that was just, that story beat, it helped me connect with the movie just a little bit more. And I know that might play into enjoyability and rewatchability as well, but I'm happy with the 12. It's not the story isn't blowing me away, and to your point, it's not something wholly original that we haven't seen before. But
it has that ambiguity to it.
It does, which some people might say is lazy writing, but other people and I'm not saying it's lazy writing.
No, yeah.
But other people, intellectuals like ourselves, will see that as ways for us to interpret it, and literally Bergman saying this is a story I wrote in a hospital, but I want you guys to kind of, maybe have your own interpretation of it to make it more fun and to have a much more emotional connection with it.
Yeah, I'm being indecisive today. Move me to a 12.
Hell yeah!
And here's why. Because it's exactly what I was saying, is that it allows you to apply your own meaning to it. This story does it very, very well, in which you're able to interject thoughts that you have on your own life and reflect upon your own life alongside Dr. Borg. Mm-hmm. So for you to have had that difficulty in your past and that be something that you've experienced in your real life allowed you to connect to that specific facet of the film. My takeaway genuinely didn't have anything to do with struggles with Alzheimer's or dementia, and the way that I personally interpreted that dream sequence was that it's no longer... He's finding that those were not the things that were important to him in his prior life, and he's reflecting upon the relationships that he could have had if not for his undying focus on achievement. Yeah. So I really appreciate that it allows you to have your own takeaway. And I think that 100 different people could watch this movie and come away with 100 different takes. So exactly. I really respect that. And it does so without burdening you, again, with tons of exposition or a massive runtime. So feel great about a 12.
Yeah, me too. For lasting impression, I also gave this a 12, whereas, and again, we say it every episode, this is such a difficult category to rank because...
We kind of have to guess.
Well, yeah, in some way, and I feel like we kind of see this as how has, or at least I interpret it as how has this movie had a lasting impression on not just me personally, but just seeing the impact of it in the movie industry, kind of see where that lasting impression is just outside of me in my apartment writing what I think about this movie. On the IMDb fun facts, this says that this is Stanley Kubrick's second favorite film of all time.
Really?
But I didn't bother looking at what his first one was because I just thought, what a really random connection is. I don't see... When I think of Bergman films, I don't think of Kubrick. Kubrick has his own style that's very jarring but beautiful, but I just see Bergman and it's just, at least from the last couple movies we've seen, has been very wholesome and very real. And I feel like Kubrick's films are very surreal, but I thought, to have such a connection like that where, this movie has that sort of connection with such a prolific filmmaker, I feel feeds into that lasting impression, but I really don't have anything else to say about it. I just feel that's it hasn't had that big of a lasting impression on me in terms of just films in general, but again, this has quickly become, and as I've been saying in this episode, that it's quickly become my favorite Bergman that we have seen so far.
So this actually ended up being my lowest rated Bergman film of the three so far.
Oh, damn.
But I still loved it. I think that he's still undefeated, and these
undefeated?
Have been some of my favorite.
Who's he fighting, bro?
Our rating system. Honestly.
Yeah, that's fair. They've been grouped together. So.
I also give it a 12 because I think that the themes and the ideas... Benny, hi. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
The themes and the ideas that we have portrayed in this film are themes that you will continue to carry with you throughout life, because that is what life is a series of choices and reflections. And I think that, that takeaway will stick with me moving forward. And like you said, it obviously has influence on filmmakers of today's time, and it was made in 1957, so almost 70 years ago now, right? If I did my math correct. 60 or so.
Yes.
Math's not my strong suit. Thank you.
Mine neither, but I'm sure I'll do my little edit of a scary voice saying what it actually is. But I'm sure I trust you.
Yeah, you've jump scared me a couple of times in these episodes.
But I think the last
Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's. I put that in the reel for that moment too. It's so funny. It's like Alzheimer's. It's just
like, whoa, did I just get possessed? I
it's like
I thought it was an issue with my microphone.
It's like fucking Sunset Boulevard, where it's like strong wart treatment.
Yes, yeah.
That shit is so funny. But cool, going into visual and auditory appeal, what did you think about the visuals?
Yeah, some of the music I thought was good, and I thought that there was also some issue with sound editing, in which, for the car crash scene, for example, it felt like the sound of the car crashing cut away very abruptly as we switched to camera angle. Mm-hmm. So there were some issues there, and there wasn't... It wasn't poorly shot by any means. I thought it was well shot, and it captured what each character was going through, but there was nothing magnificent per se.
Yeah, not like a Fanny and Alexander level of Bergman like shooting and blocking, but
right. So I gave it a 7, and
all right,
6.5, leaning to a 7.
Mm-hmm.
Left some things to be desired. There was again the audio clipping. Also, when he's at his childhood home, there were a couple of those moments in which the sound just cuts and you don't have the naturalism of the sound flowing over into the different camera angle as you would in real life. So that brought it down for me a little bit. What did you have it at?
So I originally had it at a 9, but I had to give it an 8 just because I believe I gave Fanny and Alexander a 9, and I'm like live editing my own fucking
That's
story
all right.
at this
I
point.
do that too.
To where like the music, I can't even remember like what the music sounded like in this movie, to be honest. But a lot of the visuals, like the dream sequences, and just like how this movie was shot, like a lot of like the in the car scenes looked really nice, and were very pleasing to look at. But again, it just harkens back to like, especially that first dream sequence, like it was nuts watching that. For the first time, especially that little scrunched up face dude. Like, what the fuck was that? Like,
you were talking about David Lynch before, and
no, literally, and I can't even think of why. Why that?
Again, upon rewatch, I think there would be a lot to unpack and just apply meaning to in some way.
But again, I feel comfortable giving it an 8 in terms of visual and auditory appeal. And this is my special score for pacing because I think it's a 10.
Okay.
And I will say it for this.
Like,
the movie I never felt like anything in the movie was truly unnecessary. Mm-hmm. Like I just said about the whole face scrunch thing, but that's just a personal choice in mine. I'm like, I couldn't make a sort of connection with what that could possibly mean. But the story and the pacing of the movie, I don't feel like it ever lulled, in my own personal opinion. Like, everything was just... And especially with this being our shortest Bergman film, I felt like it was just a nice little just slice of a movie that was never... Like, the dream sequences could easily feel like it's... Like, they're lulling or that they're taking way too long to happen. But I feel like every second of those dream sequences was necessary to progress the story forward. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's where I'll give it. But I think this is going to be the first time that one of us gives something a 10.
Only one of us, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I give it a 9.
There we go.
I give it a 9. And there's no real hiccup that I really had with it. I agree with you. The movie felt like it was 30 minutes long. I mean, it breezed by quite quickly. And most every moment was filled with something happening, something to take away. I just don't know what it is. I think that maybe the pacing was thrown off a little bit during the car flip sequence, and that may have just been, it felt a little bit added.
Yeah.
Plussed in there. And that's really it.
It is kind of jarring, though. Like, when that, like, you're not,
right,
it's a very, like, jump cutty.
Yes, there are a couple of very jarring moments in this, I will say. I also felt that way when we get the first hallucination type dream where he's at his house.
Yeah.
And it worked, and it kept me interested. But I felt there wasn't enough time spent in some places, and there was just a little bit too much time spent in others. And,
I think I'm thinking about that too. Like, even just like talking about his son, when we get that sort of flashback when Marianne tells him that she's pregnant, that I'm kind of like, well, when did we get here?
Right.
Like, what did we?
Right.
But even just like with that in mind, I still thought that like these little slices or these scenes, like they worked to progress it, and it didn't feel like the movie was dragging or rushing itself. I felt like it was perfectly paced in my personal opinion. What do you think of the acting?
Yeah. Well, I want to say I won't argue with the 10 there. I think that 10, it is deserving.
Really?
Yeah. No. I'm not changing my score. I'm just saying I can't argue with it. Can't argue with you. I'm keeping my pacing at a 9.
That's fine. Oh, no, okay, I thought you said acting was a 10.
No. Acting, I also have it a 9.
Okay.
And
Me too, actually. Literally both.
And it's for the reason that we usually give. There was... Well, yeah. So, Victor Sjöström, his performance is a 10.
Yeah.
His performance is a 10.
Uh-huh.
I think that he did an excellent job playing somebody who is battling with themselves. And it comes across on his face what he's thinking. And I think he gave one of the best performances that I've seen, really. I think it was excellent. Everyone else was good, not great, in my mind.
Yeah.
Very good. Mm-hmm. But there weren't multiple serious powerhouse 10s like there were in Scenes from a Marriage, for example.
Which helps that there was only literally like 4 or 5 people. Of
course. So some movies will have those advantages. Mm-hmm. But when you also have it's a difficult thing, especially because we're not native to the language, to fully understand inflection points and what really seems naturally said. Mm-hmm. So it's hard for me to teeter over the edge there. And I understand that Scenes from a Marriage also was not in English here. Okay?
Yeah,
so,
but
so don't come at me.
But it can still convey, like, even with like us not being Swedish and not true, like, of course, like we can understand what we're being read, and we can kind of feel the emotions coming out of them. Like there's, certain inflections, like I would say like maybe sarcasm doesn't really translate well like over different languages, because it could be, just tones of voice could be misconstrued in different ways. Like I'm sure like if you were to be sarcastic to somebody from a foreign country, like they might just take you at face value for what you said.
And vice versa.
Exactly. So
when reading subtitles, it's hard to know what was said with irony.
Correct.
Unless another character literally says, which they do in this movie, "Oh, you're so ironic," or "Oh, you're so sarcastic."
Yeah.
So thanks for the help there.
Bergman was like, "This one's for the American audience."
Suspension of disbelief. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this.
Suspension of disbelief. I give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
Just because there were like specifically like the flashback of the argument that we have with Edvald and Marianne when they're in the car. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like that part. I understand that it's supposed to push the story forward, but I don't feel like it was naturally progressed into like the story, whereas like the dream sequences have. Like I feel like it's been like a pretty seamless transition. I know you just argued your counterpoint to that, but I feel like that, and again the car accident was very jarring. Like we just kind of get a jump cut of them like driving around, and then all of a sudden you see this car flipped over, which I thought was their car at first. Okay. For a hot second I thought it was theirs, and then we see them in their car just like, and everything's fine, where I'm like, oh wait, that wasn't them. But I would say that, and then the choice of the dual roles, specifically for the terrible husband, with them also him being in a dream sequence, like it worked better for Sarah and the hitchhiker, because there was that dichotomy of that, like, this could possibly be...
This is her, and this is my youth, and I'm seeing that unfold in front of me.
Correct. Right. Whereas when I saw that guy again, I'm like, but why is he here? Why is he now serving this other role in the movie? Mm-hmm. That's where it kind of took me out of it, but I'm comfortable leaving it at an 8.
Yeah. Would I be crazy to give it a 6 here?
I mean,
that's what I'm thinking, is a 6. And my issues don't come from...
This is also what he gave high and low, and everybody saw that reel, how he was fucking steaming mad as to why. Yes. But I'm interested to hear that.
I'm less angry here. I'm less angry here because it works, and I think it gives us the 10 and the 9 in pacing, is the fact that we spend so little time coming to an understanding as to how the fuck these people ended up in the same place together and to begin with.
Yeah.
So I disagree with you in the sense that I feel as though the conversation that Marianne had with Dr. Borg's son about their pregnancy, I thought that was well placed. However, Marianne literally says, "I've never really liked you," to Dr. Borg.
Yeah.
And yet she's still there living with him.
Yeah.
However, you could self-justify it and say, oh, well, she does say earlier in the movie that she doesn't have very much money. That's why she needs to ride with him. Okay. But also, is there no one else in the area whatsoever? What brought her all the way that far up to, I think, were they in Stockholm, coming from Stockholm to Lund? They had some hours, right? Also, all of a sudden, there's a hitchhiker that needs a ride to Italy on the property of your childhood home that you happen to stumble across, and I'm gonna give it a 7. I'm giving a self-justification.
You're making it go up. Okay.
Yes, yeah. I still have my problems with it, but I'm not angry because where we take from some of the suspension of disbelief and where we have some plot conveniences, it still allows for the movie to move along at a brisk pace and doesn't bog us down in all of the so-called unnecessary details. So I have an understanding of that. I get that.
Okay.
But still some issues to be had there. Yeah.
Okay. Originality?
For originality, let's see what I gave it here.
I don't know why I said it like that.
Yeah, okay,
originality?
For originality, it sounds like I hate this movie. But I didn't. I give it a 7 because I think that this is a common story to be told. I think that, again, as we talked about in the story category, it's told excellently. But this is not the only movie that you can watch in which this will be the theme or the idea or the general plot line where we have someone struggling with age, mortality, and choices that they've made, which at the end of the day is a tried and true storyline, one that we all live on a day-to-day basis.
Correct.
So while I think it was executed nearly flawlessly, I can't sit here and say that it's up there even in the same realm of originality as something like Spirited Away or Love Exposure or even Fanny and Alexander, in which had all of these abstract ideas that were somehow woven into a coherent storyline that we could all still relate to.
Yeah.
So
that's fair. I gave it a 9.
Nice.
And I'm
wavering.
I'm kind of wavering on it because, to your point, this isn't something wholly original. Like, I'm not sitting here saying like I've never seen a movie like this before. But I think I'm going to continue to convey just like the connections that I could feel with the movie is something that I haven't felt in a long time with a movie, where like I could feel, and I feel like that could also just play into the acting part or the acting score, but I don't feel like I've had a real personal connection to a movie, whereas like when I see Isaac just kind of breaking, like specifically the scene after he's told that, like, the number one rule, a doctor's first duty is to ask forgiveness. When he says that line, he goes to grab a glass of water and he's literally shaking just because of like how terrified he is of like he's feeling himself diminish mentally, to where he's literally spilling the water like on the table, like the glass is literally like almost to the very top, and I've seen that in my life before. I've seen just people be scared of aging and of mortality, where like you might not be remembering everything, your body is still reacting in the moment as to what is going on. So I would say that kind of pushes my score a little bit to sure that's originality, in terms of like it might not be the most original film I've ever seen. The experience that I felt watching it was original to me.
You. Yeah.
But not in a way where I can give it a 10.
And that's why we have these. So that's awesome.
Which and then, go ahead.
I just want to say, Bergman has such a way of tackling the hardest aspects of life. He really does. Every movie that we've watched from Ingmar Bergman has, like Scorsese said, and that you brought up, a conversation with himself. No one wants to talk about these things, and they're not fun to watch unfold on screen, right? But they still have that profound and powerful emotional impact that makes it worth it. It lets you know that you are not the only one, that you are not isolated in your struggles, right? And
he brings up these topics without making it difficult to watch. I feel like these Bergman films
It's very
where
human.
it's very human and it's pretty easy to watch. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's dealing with like very heavy material, but it never feels like you're wanting to like wince or cringe.
He's not
or
trying
feel
to punish
uncomfortable.
you. He's not trying to punish you.
No,
with the
he's
idea.
trying to just tell you that like it's a part. This is something is difficult for a lot of people, but it's a part of life, and that's what makes life a beautiful thing. That like you could have these incredible highs, or that you can accomplish something that you wanted all your life, but it might feel empty, like Isaac with his degree. But that in the end, like what will keep is the relationships that we have with people, because in the end of the movie, that's what he truly feels happy with, is knowing that despite Marianne not saying the most wonderful things about him, but she's still, at the end of the day, I still like you, Isaac. And that's what truly makes him feel satisfied, which again plays into the very last dream sequence of the movie, where Sarah goes and says, "Oh, I found your mom and dad, let's go see them." And it's very simple. She just puts him, like, takes him to her, and dad's fishing, mom's like just kind of sitting around, but he's happy in that moment, and he's relishing in his childhood memories to truly feel that, like, you know, maybe not everything was that bad. So and I feel like that feeds into my attachment of the film, because I gave it a 4, just to push it just enough. And obviously with my personal attachment with the film bleeds into that too, because I originally had it at a 3, but it put it at an 84. But it's what we have the personal attachment for, to be able to push it to an 85 and push it up to the next level of stars. But I'm sorry, I feel like I'm dragging.
No, by all means. I'm glad that there was so much that you connected to with this, and Bergman is quickly becoming one of my favorite directors. So by all means, it's hard not to talk about things like this, and that's what movies are made for. I gave it a 3, and I can see that going up, as well as I can see my lasting impression score going up. Because this is definitely one of those movies that you're going to think about and consider in life, in general life. So I give it a 3 now, which is right at the median, hovering towards a 4. But where I have it, it didn't need any additional help. It's out of 76. I think it's a solid,
It's a 75.
A 4-star movie. Is that a 75 for me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, still a 4-star movie, which I think, you know, if I had given it a 5, it would still be a 4-star movie based off my other considerations.
Exactly.
So 75 for me, and what did you end up? Since we're not recording on StreamYard right now.
I know it's so. You had it at a 75, and
You had it at 85, right?
85. Yep.
Okay.
So
nice. So it's an 80.
Exactly. So wow, that was good math.
Thanks.
Good job.
So where does that land us? You're gonna have to read it out since I can't see it.
Oh my God.
Is that number 3?
It's at number 2, above High and Low.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Remind me, High and Low's average was what?
83.
Our average is an 80.
Damn it, you're right. I'm bad at math. I fucking suck.
Do I need to come over there and check it?
Can you come check my work? I don't know what I'm doing. What's this movie called?
Wild Strawberries.
I know, I'm typing it out.
Okay.
So that puts it right there in the 3 spot.
Okay.
So
it's our third film at 80 or above, right?
Yep, it is. We're literally right at 80. So we have, in our top 3 is still Spirited Away with an 87. Second is High and Low with an 83. And then we have Wild Strawberries, the highest ranked Bergman film.
Wow.
At an 80.
And Scenes from a Marriage is where?
At number 5 at
and
a
Fanny?
79. Fanny is at 6 with 76.5.
Nice. So they're all in the pretty much the top half. Almost the top half. I guess whenever we have a 12th movie.
Exactly. Which, speaking of a 12th movie...
Speaking of...
Oh, dang, now you can't see
I know. The intensity is even higher.
Oh my God. So, alright. But we're putting Wild Strawberries up in the rafters. We're going to move on to our 12th film?
Mm-hmm.
12th?
I believe so, yeah.
12th film. Alright. Are you
12th.
ready? 12th. Are you ready?
I didn't mean... Yeah, I'm
fucking
ready.
asshole.
Spin the damn thing!
Alright.
Spinning?
Yep, it's spinning. God damn it. God damn it. Dude, no, okay, so It was literally like right at Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
And then it went like by a fucking millimeter to the next movie, which is called Woman in the Dunes.
Okay.
So
basically Lord of the Rings.
Basically, God, fuck, that was the closest we've gotten yet. But again, I'm not going to complain because so far these random movies we've been drawing have been certified bangers.
Certified hood classics.
They have been. What a fucking poster, dude.
Yeah.
Is it Japanese?
I believe so. Let's see.
You sure about that?
Yes, it is. So the slug line on Letterboxd for Woman in the Dunes is haunting, erotic, unforgettable. The poster looks pretty spicy. We have a vacationing entomologist suffers extreme physical and psychological trauma after being taken captive by the residents of a poor seaside village and made to live with a woman whose life task is shoveling sand for them. It's directed by Hiroshi Teshigahara, came out in 1964, and is a Japanese language film with an average rating of 4.5 on Letterboxd, putting it currently at number 29 on the Letterboxd top narrative features
So it
list.
went up because when we pulled this list, it was at 30.
Okay, so it went up one spot.
It went up. So people like this movie then.
I guess so. It is. It does have a longer runtime, 2 hours and 27 minutes, so nothing crazy. But I have no preconceived notions of this movie.
Nope, I've never heard of it, and I'm not like. I mean, we've been getting pretty. I'd say we've been getting pretty good Japanese films, and then I think of The Human Condition. And
we've been going back and forth between a Japanese film and an Ingmar Bergman film. A Japanese film and Ingmar Bergman.
One Iranian film sprinkled in there.
Right.
But yeah, it's either been Bergman or Japan.
What's up with the wheel?
I don't know, dude. But Claire's gonna be pissed.
Yeah. This movie has a listed cast of 4 people, by the way.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll work out in its favor for the acting score.
Yeah, we will see. Interested to dive into
Another foreign language.
No, I was going to say I'm interested to dive into the Woman in the Dunes, but that did not sound right. Interested to dive into this next movie.
That's the cold open. Let's just put that at the beginning.
Next week.
We don't need to watch the rest of the fucking episode.
All right. Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Always awesome to talk movies with you, but it's even better to be able to do this live and in person. It's been very nice to have like Parker here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So just as always, where can people find you?
Of course, so feel free to find me on Letterboxd, Parker_Paget, and of course follow us on Instagram, on TikTok, and subscribe on YouTube. Sunset Boulevard has gotten a spike here a little bit. Nice. And if you like that episode and you like the episodes we've been putting out, thanks for following along. We definitely have more English language films, which probably just more people in America have watched in general.
Yeah.
That I can think of. So we've really been diving into some interesting cinema here. So if you've been following along, hopefully it's been enjoyable. We've enjoyed talking about it, of course.
Absolutely.
And just on Letterboxd and at Spooky Senders if it's post-haunt season and you want to reminisce on Halloween Horror Nights or any haunted house events that you enjoy going to. Check out
how
Spooky
we're
Centers
both
as
just
well,
plugging it because we're both wearing
Always.
our Halloween Horror Nights shirts.
It's half my wardrobe, so
same. And I mean it's the season here, but again, just go and watch Spooky Senders. It'll be a nice send off. Because obviously this will be out after Horror Nights has ended, but it's like to Parker's point, if you want to reminisce, listen to him and Colin talk about it. It's always great. It gets you pumped for next season too, just even talking about it. I can't wait for you guys to do like your top food of HHN.
Yeah.
That was my favorite of the episode, so I'm excited for that. But in terms of me, sorry, I'm not plugging Aviation Gin. I'm just my head is too big. Liar. Love me some Ryan Reynolds juice. But
okay.
you can follow me on Letterboxd at ETZIO911, and as Parker said, just go and follow us on Letterboxd. Make sure to like and subscribe on the YouTube channel, and make sure to review us 5 stars and leave comments on the podcast, whether Spotify or Apple, wherever you listen to us. Please do so. You can catch Parker, creeping along in r/movies on Reddit, which he'll be posting some stuff on there, so just join in the conversation. It's always fun. But until then, as always, we will see you at the movies.